Welcome to Handmade Happenings. I'm Marissa, and today I'm going to be talking about how I recreated Genevieve's dress from Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. Now, I made this dress a couple of years ago before I started this channel, so I only have a few clips that I had tried to film at the time. So this will be mostly me talking and some close-ups of the dress. I will also be covering what I would do differently if I was doing this now, and what my future plans are for it. So, to start off, all of this dress was made out of pink polyester satin charmeuse from Fabric Wholesale Direct. And we will start with the skirt because then I can address how exactly we got all these different colors. The skirt is a full circle skirt, and it was ombre dyed using red dye mold, which is the dye for polyester and other synthetic fabrics. So there's no gathering. This was drafted exactly to the measurements of the waist of this bodice. It is knee length, and the ruffle on the bottom is pink organza that I bought on Etsy. It was a roll of it cut to 6 inches, and so I just folded it in half and gathered it to the skirt. Moving on to the bodice. This is a princess seam bodice, and it has a scallop on the center front, the sides, and the back. I did this by just taking the pattern pieces and extending them and rounding them off. Then to line this, because the skirt is actually only attached to the lining of the dress. And apparently I left a lot of raw edges, but that was because this was scalloped and I couldn't really attach it there. So to finish off this scalloped edge, I just cut a facing and attached it. The ribbon was done with a lace shaping technique. So what I did was I took the gold ribbon and pinned it and stitched it along the bottom. I then came back along the top and ran a gathering thread, which I then pulled to help it lay flat and stitched it down. And this is something, as I said, I found from lace shaping. If you do any heirloom sewing, you've probably seen it with that. That's how you do it. You sew the outer edge, and the lace has a thread in the header that you just pull. It will gather it and cause it to lay flat. There's gold piping in the seams. This was done with the same ribbon as the trim on the bottom. I made this by cutting bias tape and then just covering it with the ribbon because the ribbon was not long enough on its own. Around the neckline, I have these almost like petals. These are the same organza as the skirt. And I made these by cutting circles and folding them in half, gathering along that curved edge. So larger circles graduating down to the smaller ones. The flower was from Dollar Tree. It was one of their bouquets of flowers that year. They conveniently had pink roses, which is what I needed. The applique came from Joann's. It was the Yaya Han, I probably pronounced that wrong, collection. So that's where that came from. Moving on to the sleeves, these are puff sleeves. I dyed the top part that hot pink that matches the skirt, or was supposed to match the skirt. I did this by taking a short sleeve pattern and adding fullness to it, and then the bottom part is the bottom half of a 3/4 length sleeve, and so it's just gathered into it. Once again, same gold ribbon for the trim. I used 2 rows because I needed it wider right here, and then a smaller gold ribbon over top to hide that seam. At the bottom, more gold ribbon and a pink bow. These were done with rectangles of fabric that were finished and then flipped and pleated, and a piece around the middle. So now moving on to the back. There's not as much going on in the back. Basically, it's the same scallop. I didn't put any piping in the back. And the back of her dress in the movie is almost like, I think think how it was supposed to be was a dress with like a corset over top. So you had the lacing in the back. Obviously, I only made this in one big piece because I didn't want to have to buy more fabric at the time to make it separate. So in the pictures in the movie, it's an animated movie. It doesn't have any laces actually tied. So I hand sewed eyelets and just ran it crisscross all the way down and put the ends underneath. And obviously you'll notice there is no back zipper. I actually did a side zipper because I wanted to be able to have this detail, and it is a lot easier to get a dress on when it has a side zipper. So in addition to making the dress, I did make the shoes as well because it's Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. If you've ever seen the movie, the shoes are a big part of it. Now these are actual point shoes. I used to take ballet. I did a couple of years on point. So I had a pair that was not completely worn out, and I was able to use them to paint. So to do this, I painted the tip a very bright pink, and the rest of the body of the shoe is this lighter pink. I then glued a thin gold ribbon around where the two colors meet, and I used ribbon to make flowers, and this gold braid that I already had, I think I had it on my stash at the time, goes around that edge. And I replaced my original point shoe ribbons with a lighter pink that would match the repainted ones. And because I am a dancer and I was absolutely not going to have them tied incorrectly, I did leave these and tie these for my pictures the proper way, which is all the way around the ankle and not up to the knee. And as a small rant that only dancers will understand, Mattel made Barbie in Swan Lake and Barbie and the Nutcracker before they made Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. And in both of the previous movies, they had the point shoes tied correctly. And then, for some reason, in the 12 Dancing Princesses, they decided to have them tied incorrectly, even though obviously they knew how they were supposed to be tied. With that slight rant aside, let's move on to what I would do differently if I was doing this now. So the first thing I would do differently, and this is something that I wished I had done even 2 years ago right after I had done it, is I do wish the skirt was fuller. And I don't necessarily mean that I wish I had made it where I had to gather it and all that, because looking at the pictures, it really doesn't look like there are any gathers. What I mean is I just wish that the skirt stood out a little more. Not long after I did this dress, I found out about horsehair braid, which will help circle skirts and such stand out a little more instead of just hanging straight down, and I wish I had used that. Another thing that I wish I had done was I just wish I had done a better job at the ombre dye on the skirt. I don't know why it came out the way it did, but it almost looks more purple than pink. And it's funny because I dyed the sleeves the same time I dyed the skirt. And this is the pink I wanted for the top of the skirt, but it didn't happen. And I don't know why. Another thing I wish I had done differently is I kind of wish I had actually made the dress and then made the almost corset style top separately. But then again, that would have been another piece and more fabric, and I did not want to do that at the time. Lastly, what I wish I had done as far as the dress goes is I wish I had used a better fabric. And that's just that this one, it's so shiny, sometimes it looks very much like dress up. And now granted, it is cosplay, it is basically dress up, but I just wish it had been I had used a nicer satin. So the last thing that I wish I had done differently on this dress is I wish I had attached this piece. So it is not attached at all on the sides here. Like, it's attached at the neckline and the sleeves, but the side is not attached. this side is attached, but only because there's a zipper here. And I do wish I had found a way to attach this. Not only would it just look better, but when I took photos with this, if I remember correctly, it did cause this entire thing to shift and kind of hang funny because, again, it's attached here. So this side couldn't yank up, but this side, with some of my poses and all, kept shifting in a way that I would have rather not had. I also had a regret with the shoes, and that was just the type of paint that I used. It was acrylic paint, and you can see on the sides where it cracked when I wore them for the photo shoot. And I didn't dance in these. I did go up on point, but that was it, and the paint cracked, and so I just wish I had kind of gotten a different kind of paint or a better sealer. Now let's talk about my future plans with this dress, because I don't go to cosplay or Comic Cons or any of those types of things, and I'm not one to keep stuff in my closet that I can't wear or I'm not going to get use out of. In fact, this dress was my first summer project. I do this with a friend each summer, and the whole idea was to be that one project a year that was going to be impractical. Well, so far out of 3 years, I have found ways to make, I'm trying to find ways to make all of the last 3 years of summer projects practical, and my plans for next year's summer project pretty much have built-in practicality to it. So that's not working very well for me. But what am I going to do with this dress? Because, I mean, it's shiny, it's satin. For me, I cannot possibly, I don't think, make anything that I could wear on a regular basis or anything. So my plans for this dress are to take it apart and turn it into a dress for one of my nieces. So the idea is that she could have a dress either for special occasions or just dress up. My plan is to simply take the skirt off and just leave it, because it was knee length on me and would probably be calf or ankle length on her. Like, it's not going to be too long on her if I just leave it. So I'm going to leave that. The bodice, my plan is that I'm going to see if I can take a regular pattern in her size and turn it into princess seams, because since this is a princess seam bodice, I can't just cut a regular bodice out of it. But I think if I cut it down to a princess seam, I might be able to get it. That's my hope anyway. Then my plan is to take the gold ribbon from around the waist and turn it into like a gold sash at the waist, and take the flower and place it down at the waist. I'll probably remove the applique altogether, as well as the bows, because again, I do want this to be something she could wear if it was a special occasion, and so some of these elements would just have to go in order for that to work. Thank you so much for watching while I revisited this old project. As I said, I will be recreating this, so if you would like to see what I end up turning it into, please be sure to subscribe.